In a quiet town surrounded by fields of golden wheat, life moved at a slow and steady pace. The sun rose and set each day, casting long shadows over the land where Jack Miller worked alongside his younger sister, Lily. Their family had owned the farm for generations, and though it wasn't much, it was home. The days were predictable, planting seeds in spring, harvesting crops in fall, and spending evenings on the wooden porch watching the horizon turn orange and pink as night crept in. But one evening, something unusual happened. As Jack leaned back in his chair, strumming an old guitar he found at a flea market years ago, Lily pointed toward the sky. At first, he thought she was admiring the stars beginning to peek through the twilight. But then he saw them too, bright lights moving unnaturally fast across the heavens. They weren't airplanes or satellites. These lights zigzagged and hovered, defying every rule of physics Jack knew. "Do you think it's aliens?" Lily asked, her voice trembling slightly. Jack chuckled softly, trying to mask his own unease. "Aliens don't exist," he said, though even as he spoke, doubt lingered in his mind. Still, he kept playing his guitar, letting the soft melody fill the air. Music always made him feel better when things got strange or scary. The lights grew brighter and closer, until finally massive ships descended from the clouds. They loomed over the town like metallic mountains, their surfaces gleaming under the moonlight. The next morning, the world woke up to a reality that felt both surreal and terrifying. The alien ships still hung in the sky, unmoving but ever-present, casting long shadows over cities and towns alike. News outlets buzzed with updates, theories, and warnings, but no one had any real answers. Governments urged people to stay indoors, while military forces prepared for what seemed like an inevitable attack. Yet amidst the chaos, something unusual was happening, something the aliens hadn't anticipated. Jack and Lily returned to the center of town early that day, finding it transformed. Dozens of people had gathered there, some carrying instruments, others bringing food or blankets. Word had spread about Jack's performance the night before, and now more locals wanted to join in. A man named Ryan Carter, who owned a small music store in the nearby city, had driven out to see what was going on. He brought with him a portable speaker system and a drum set he'd loaded into the back of his truck. "Mind if I join you?" Ryan asked, grinning as he set up his equipment. Jack nodded, welcoming the extra sound. "The more, the merrier," he said, handing Ryan a spare microphone. Together, they started playing again, louder this time, filling the air with a mix of folk tunes, rock songs, and improvised melodies. People clapped, danced, and sang along, their voices rising above the tension that had gripped them just hours earlier. Meanwhile, across the country, Emily Dawson sat in her apartment in Chicago, glued to her laptop. As a journalist, she'd spent years covering stories of hardship and resilience, but nothing like this. Social media feeds were flooded with videos of similar scenes unfolding elsewhere, groups of people coming together to sing, dance, and celebrate life despite the looming threat. One video showed a flash mob in Times Square, where strangers linked arms and swayed to a live band. Another captured a neighborhood in Los Angeles lighting candles and sharing meals outside while someone played the piano on the sidewalk. At first, Emily thought these acts were simply coping mechanisms, ways for people to deal with fear. But as she scrolled deeper, she noticed something odd. Whenever humans expressed joy, the alien ships seemed to hesitate. In several clips, the massive vessels would waver slightly, their once steady hum faltering for brief moments. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but undeniable upon closer inspection. Curious, Emily decided to investigate further. She called contacts she'd made during her career, scientists, historians, musicians, and pieced together a theory. Music, laughter, and collective celebration weren't just emotional outlets. They might actually be affecting the aliens somehow. Perhaps the invaders relied on fear to maintain control, feeding off the panic they inspired. If that was true, then humanity's response could be its greatest weapon. Back in the Midwest, Jack and Lily sensed none of this. They were too busy keeping spirits high. By midday, the gathering had grown even larger, drawing people from neighboring towns. Children chased each other around, giggling as if nothing was wrong. Elderly couples slow danced to old love songs, their faces glowing with nostalgia. Even those who didn't know how to play an instrument found ways to contribute. Some banged pots and pans together, while others stomped their feet to keep rhythm. As the sun began to set, Ryan stepped forward with a proposal. "We should take this beyond our town," he said, his voice firm but kind. "If we can spread this energy, maybe we can show the whole world that we're not afraid." Jack nodded, feeling a spark of excitement. "Let's do it," he said. "But we'll need help." Word traveled fast. Within hours, volunteers organized themselves into teams, using social media to coordinate events in nearby cities. Flyers were printed, messages sent, and plans made. By the following week, towns across the region were hosting their own gatherings, all inspired by the little farm community where it had started. High above, Commander Vrax watched the developments with growing unease. His species thrived on fear. It fueled their technology and gave them strength. But these humans, they refused to behave as expected. Instead of cowering, they laughed louder, sang sweeter, and danced harder. For the first time in centuries, Vrax felt uncertain. Were they truly as harmless as they seemed? Or was this some elaborate trick? Unbeknownst to him, the answer lay not in weapons or strategies, but in something far simpler, the indomitable spirit of humanity. And as the music continued to rise, so did the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could win. Not through force, but through unity. The movement grew faster than anyone could have imagined. What started as a small act of defiance in a Midwest town soon spread like wildfire, igniting hope in communities across the globe. Jack, Lily, and Ryan became symbols of this new kind of resistance, not armed fighters or political leaders, but ordinary people who refused to let fear dictate their lives. Their message was simple. If the aliens wanted humanity to surrender, they would have to take it from people who were too busy celebrating to care. In Chicago, Emily Dawson worked tirelessly to document the phenomenon. She traveled from one gathering to another, interviewing participants and capturing footage of the events. Her articles gained traction online, inspiring even more people to join in. One video she posted showed a group of factory workers pausing mid-shift to sing together, their voices echoing through the empty halls. Another featured elderly residents in a nursing home dancing in wheelchairs while a volunteer played the accordion. Each clip added fuel to the growing fire of unity. But it wasn't just about music and dance. In New York City, a massive crowd gathered in Central Park, transforming the sprawling green space into a festival of life. Strangers shared stories, food, and laughter, creating bonds that transcended language and culture. A young man named Alex, who had been struggling with depression for months, found himself smiling for the first time in what felt like forever. He picked up a tambourine someone had left behind and joined the rhythm, feeling a sense of belonging he hadn't known existed. Even in places where fear still lingered, the change was palpable. In Los Angeles, a woman named Maria organized a candlelight vigil outside a hospital where patients and staff stood side by side, singing songs of hope. The scene was broadcast live, reaching millions of viewers around the world. People began to realize that the aliens' presence wasn't just a threat. It was also an opportunity to come together, to rediscover what it meant to be human. High above Earth, Commander Vrax watched these developments with mounting frustration. His species relied on fear to maintain control, using it to power their technology and sustain their empire. But humans were proving to be unlike any other race they had encountered before. Instead of crumbling under pressure, they thrived. Their joy disrupted the energy field surrounding the ships, causing minor malfunctions and forcing his crew to recalibrate constantly. Vrax's advisors urged him to launch a full-scale attack, arguing that swift destruction would quell the rebellion. But something held him back. For centuries, his people had viewed other species as inferior, unworthy of understanding or respect. Yet here were humans, fragile and imperfect, standing tall against overwhelming odds. They weren't fighting back with weapons or shields. They were fighting with something far more powerful: spirit. Back on Earth, Jack and Ryan coordinated efforts to synchronize global performances. Using social media and satellite broadcasts, they planned a worldwide event, a single moment when humanity would unite through song and dance. The idea caught on quickly, with cities and towns pledging to participate. Musicians donated their talents, tech experts set up live streams, and volunteers worked day and night to ensure everything went smoothly. Lily, meanwhile, focused on spreading the word among younger generations. She visited schools, encouraging kids to write songs, draw pictures, or do anything creative to express their feelings. "We're not afraid," she told them during one assembly, "and we won't let anyone take that away from us." As the date of the global event approached, excitement reached a fever pitch. Billboards displayed messages of hope, radio stations played uplifting tunes, and neighborhoods decorated their streets with colorful banners. Even skeptics found themselves drawn in by the infectious energy. It was impossible not to feel moved by the sight of millions of people refusing to give up. On the evening of the event, the sky darkened, and the alien ships loomed larger than ever. But below, lights flickered on in homes, parks, and squares as people prepared to make history. Jack stood at the center of the gathering in his hometown, guitar in hand, surrounded by friends and strangers alike. Beside him, Lily held a microphone, ready to lead the countdown. "Remember," Jack said, addressing the crowd, "this isn't about winning or losing. It's about showing them, and ourselves, who we really are." The clock struck midnight, and the first notes rang out. Across the planet, billions of voices joined in harmony, defying the silence of space with a sound so powerful it seemed to shake the stars themselves. As the global performance reached its peak, something extraordinary began to happen. The music, laughter, and joy radiating from Earth seemed to ripple outward, like waves on a pond. High above, the alien ships trembled. Their sleek surfaces flickered faintly, as though struggling to maintain their usual cold perfection. Inside the vessels, alarms blared, and systems glitched in ways that no one among the invaders could explain. Commander Vrax paced the bridge of his ship, frustration etched into every line of his face, or what passed for a face among his kind. His advisors shouted conflicting suggestions, some calling for immediate retaliation, others urging caution. But Vrax ignored them all. He stared at the screens showing images of Earth below, images of humans dancing, singing, and smiling. It was maddening. These creatures should have been easy to conquer. Fear was supposed to be universal, a tool that worked on every species they had encountered before. Yet here were humans, defying logic with their relentless cheerfulness. Vrax turned to his chief scientist, a being named Trelk. "Explain this," he demanded, pointing at the monitors. "Why are our systems failing? Why does their happiness affect us?" Trelk hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Our technology relies on harnessing fear," he admitted. "It is the foundation of our power. When we encounter resistance based on joy instead of terror, it creates instability. We are not designed to handle such emotions." "Then redesign it," Vrax snapped, his voice sharp with anger. "We cannot afford weakness now." But Trelk shook his head. "It is not so simple. Emotions like these, they are foreign to us. Our people abandoned such feelings long ago, focusing only on efficiency and dominance. To adapt would require change." Vrax clenched his fists, a rare display of emotion for his species. Change was dangerous. It implied vulnerability, uncertainty. And yet, as he watched the humans celebrate, he couldn't help but feel a strange pull, a curiosity he hadn't experienced in centuries. What was it about them that made them so resilient, so unbreakable? Back on Earth, Jack felt none of the tension aboard the alien ships. He stood in the middle of the crowd, guitar slung over his shoulder, watching as people swayed and sang together under the starlit sky. Lily moved through the throng, handing out candles to those without light. Ryan coordinated with volunteers via a handheld radio, ensuring the live stream remained stable. Despite the enormity of the moment, there was an undeniable sense of peace in the air. Emily Dawson stood nearby, filming the scene for her next article. She had never seen anything like it. People from all walks of life coming together, united by nothing more than a shared desire to live fully, even in the shadow of danger. As she adjusted her camera, she noticed something peculiar. The lights on the alien ships overhead were dimming slightly, pulsing in rhythm with the music rising from below. Could it be possible? Was humanity's spirit truly affecting the invaders? Her thoughts were interrupted when a young boy tugged at her sleeve. "Are we winning?" he asked, his wide eyes filled with hope. Emily knelt down to meet his gaze. "I don't know if we're winning," she said honestly, "but we're not losing either. And sometimes, that's enough." Nearby, Maria, the woman who had organized the vigil in Los Angeles, spoke quietly with Alex, the man who had found solace in Central Park. They had traveled separately to join the event, drawn by the same invisible thread that connected everyone present. "Do you think they'll leave?" Alex asked, glancing up at the massive ships. Maria shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe they'll stay. Either way, we've already won. Look around you. We're alive. We're free." As the night wore on, the performance continued uninterrupted. People took turns leading songs, telling stories, or simply holding hands. There was no need for speeches or grand declarations. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't defined by its fears. It was defined by its ability to rise above them. High above, Vrax finally made his decision. He ordered his crew to retreat temporarily, pulling their ships farther away from Earth's atmosphere. The instability caused by human emotions was too great a risk. For now, they would observe, analyze, and plan their next move. But deep down, Vrax knew the truth. This mission was no longer straightforward. These humans had changed everything, not with weapons or force, but with something far more powerful. And as the ships drifted higher into the sky, the people below cheered, unaware that their defiance had already planted the seeds of doubt in the hearts of their would-be conquerors. The following days brought a strange kind of calm to Earth. The alien ships had retreated farther into space, no longer hovering menacingly over cities, but still visible in the sky like distant storm clouds. People around the world held their breath, unsure what this temporary withdrawal meant. Was it a pause before an even greater attack? Or was it a sign that humanity's defiance had struck a nerve? Jack and Lily spent much of their time organizing smaller gatherings in their town, keeping spirits high while waiting for the next move. Ryan traveled to nearby cities, helping others set up similar events. Emily continued documenting everything, her articles reaching millions of readers who were hungry for hope. But despite the lull, no one relaxed completely. Everyone knew the aliens hadn't left. They were simply biding their time. One evening, as Jack sat on the porch tuning his guitar, Lily approached him with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked, her voice quieter than usual. "Of course they will," Jack replied without hesitation. He plucked a string, letting the note hang in the air. "But when they do, we'll be ready." Lily frowned. "Ready how? We don't have weapons or shields or anything." "We don't need them," Jack said with a grin. "We've got something better, our spirit. That's what scared them off last time, remember?" Lily nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in her eyes. She wanted to believe her brother, but the enormity of what they were facing weighed heavily on her mind. Meanwhile, Emily received a message from an unexpected source, a scientist named Dr. Amanda Hayes, who specialized in sound technology. Amanda had been following Emily's reports about the global performance and believed she might have found a way to amplify its effects. Sound waves can carry energy, Amanda explained during a video call. If we focus those waves in specific frequencies, we could potentially disrupt the alien systems even more effectively. Emily's heart raced at the idea. You mean we could use music as a weapon? In a way, yes, Amanda replied. It wouldn't destroy them, but it could weaken their defenses enough to give us the upper hand. Excited by the possibility, Emily shared the information with Jack and Ryan. Together, they reached out to musicians, engineers, and tech experts, pooling resources to create a plan. They decided to compose a new piece of music, one specifically designed to resonate at the frequencies Amanda had identified. It would be performed globally, just like the previous event, but this time with a clear purpose: to push the aliens away for good. The composition process was intense. Jack worked closely with Ryan and several other musicians, experimenting with melodies and rhythms until they found the perfect balance. Meanwhile, Amanda collaborated with engineers to modify speakers and amplifiers, ensuring the sound could reach the alien ships. Volunteers helped spread the word, coordinating rehearsals and setting up equipment in cities worldwide. As the day of the performance approached, anticipation grew. People prepared not just emotionally but practically, gathering in open spaces and testing the modified sound systems. Even skeptics joined in, drawn by the promise of taking action against the invaders. High above, Commander Vrax monitored the preparations with growing unease. His advisors urged him to strike preemptively, arguing that another wave of human emotion could destabilize their fleet further. But Vrax hesitated. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to learn from these strange beings below. Their resilience fascinated him and terrified him. On the morning of the event, Jack stood before a crowd of thousands in Central Park, addressing them with quiet confidence. Today isn't just about making noise, he said. It's about showing them, and ourselves, that we're stronger together. No matter what happens next, we've already won because we refuse to give up. As the first notes rang out, the atmosphere shifted. The music was different this time, richer, deeper, almost tangible in its intensity. Across the globe, billions joined in, their voices blending into a single, powerful force. Lights flickered wildly on the alien ships, and cracks began to form along their surfaces. Vrax watched in stunned silence as his ship shuddered violently. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear, not for himself, but for the future of his people. These humans weren't just surviving. They were thriving. And perhaps, he thought, that was something worth respecting. The music surged upward, its vibrations carrying far beyond the limits of human hearing. On Earth, people danced and sang with a fervor that seemed to defy the odds, their voices rising as one in defiance of the looming alien ships. High above, the invaders' vessels groaned under the strain. The sleek surfaces that had once appeared invincible now shimmered erratically, their energy fields destabilizing with each passing second. Alarms blared inside the command centers, and even the most seasoned crew members exchanged uneasy glances. Commander Vrax clenched his fists tightly, his mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. His species had conquered countless worlds, bending entire civilizations to their will through fear and force. Yet here they were, faltering against beings who refused to cower. Humans didn't fight back with weapons or shields. They fought with joy, unity, and an unshakable belief in themselves. It was maddening. And yet, it was also fascinating. Sir, Trelk, the chief scientist, called out urgently. The frequency of their sound waves is disrupting our core systems. If this continues, we risk total collapse. Vrax turned sharply, his sharp gaze piercing through the dimly lit bridge. Then shut it down. Block the transmission. Trelk hesitated, visibly struggling to find the right words. We can't. Their technology isn't like ours. It's not mechanical. It's emotional. We don't have the tools to counteract something so organic. For a moment, silence fell over the room. Vrax stared at the screens showing images of Earth below. Images of humans smiling, laughing, and celebrating life, despite the danger hanging over them. He felt a strange pang within him, a sensation he hadn't experienced in centuries. Was it admiration, curiosity, or perhaps something deeper, a longing for what his own kind had lost long ago? Back on Earth, Jack strummed his guitar with everything he had, sweat dripping down his face as the crowd roared around him. Beside him, Lily held her hands high, clapping along to the rhythm. Ryan directed the amplified speakers, ensuring the sound reached every corner of the park. Across the globe, millions joined in perfect harmony, their collective spirit fueling the performance. Even those unable to attend physically tuned in online, adding their voices to the chorus. Emily watched from the sidelines, filming the event for her next report. She couldn't believe how far they'd come, from scattered acts of defiance to a unified global effort. As she scanned the sea of faces, she noticed something remarkable. There was no fear left in anyone's eyes, only determination and hope. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the air. People froze, looking up at the sky. One of the alien ships, the largest one hovering directly above Central Park, began to fracture. Cracks spread across its surface like spiderwebs, glowing faintly before erupting into bursts of light. Cheers erupted from the crowd as the ship broke apart, dissolving into harmless particles that drifted away like stardust. Inside the vessel, Vrax braced himself as alarms screamed louder than ever. His crew scrambled to stabilize the ship, but it was too late. Systems failed one by one, plunging the interior into darkness. For a brief moment, panic gripped him. But then, strangely, calmness followed. He realized they weren't being destroyed. They were being pushed away. The humans weren't trying to annihilate them. They were simply defending themselves. "We need to retreat," Vrax ordered finally, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Now, his advisors protested, but Vrax silenced them with a raised hand. "This mission has taught us more than we expected. Perhaps it's time we rethink our approach." As the remaining ships pulled farther away from Earth, the crowd below erupted into jubilation. Strangers hugged, tears streaming down their faces. Jack set his guitar aside and embraced Lily tightly, relief washing over him. They had done it, not through violence or hatred, but through unity and courage. In the days that followed, news of humanity's victory spread worldwide. Governments praised the efforts of ordinary citizens, while scientists studied the phenomenon to better understand how it had worked. Emily published her article, calling it "The Day Humanity Danced Its Way to Freedom." Her words resonated with readers everywhere, reminding them of the power of resilience and hope. But high above, Vrax remained haunted by what he had witnessed. The humans had shown him something he hadn't believed possible, strength born not from fear, but from love. And as he guided his fleet deeper into space, he couldn't help but wonder if his own people could learn to embrace such emotions again, or if they would forever remain prisoners of their own cold efficiency. Humanity had won, for now, but the ripples of that day would be felt for generations to come. In the weeks that followed the retreat of the alien ships, life on Earth began to return to a semblance of normalcy. The skies were clear again, and people went back to their daily routines, working, studying, and caring for their families. Yet everything felt different now. The world had changed, not just in how it looked but in how it felt. There was a newfound sense of connection, a shared understanding that humanity was capable of more than anyone had imagined. Jack and Lily spent their days tending to the farm, though they often found themselves pausing to watch the horizon. The sight of an empty sky filled them with both relief and lingering unease. "Do you think they'll come back?" Lily asked one afternoon as she watered the crops. "They might," Jack replied, leaning on his hoe. "But if they do, we'll be ready. We've proven we can handle whatever they throw at us." Lily nodded, her confidence bolstered by the memory of what they had achieved together. Still, there was a part of her that worried, not about the aliens, but about what might happen next. Would people forget the lessons they had learned? Would fear creep back into their lives? Meanwhile, Emily continued her work as a journalist, traveling across the country to document the aftermath of the invasion. She interviewed scientists, musicians, and everyday people who had played a role in the resistance. One story stood out to her: a young girl named Sophie who had started a community choir in her neighborhood after being inspired by the global performance. "We used to fight over little things," Sophie told Emily. "Now we sing together instead. It's better this way." Emily smiled, jotting down notes. Stories like Sophie's reminded her why she had chosen this career: to shine a light on the good in the world, even during its darkest moments. It was during one of these interviews that Emily stumbled upon something unexpected. A man named Eric, who claimed to have been contacted by a rogue faction of aliens, approached her cautiously. At first, she dismissed him as another conspiracy theorist seeking attention. But when he showed her encrypted messages detailing secret communications between humans and dissident aliens, her skepticism turned to curiosity. According to Eric, not all aliens supported the invasion. Some viewed humanity's response as proof that their leaders' methods were flawed. These dissenters believed that fear-based dominance only led to instability, and they sought peaceful coexistence instead. They offered critical information about the aliens' technology and weaknesses, hoping to bridge the gap between species. Emily knew she had to investigate further. With Jack and Ryan's help, she arranged a meeting with representatives from the rogue faction. The encounter took place in a secluded forest clearing, far from prying eyes. When the aliens arrived, beings with translucent skin and glowing orbs where their faces should have been, everyone present held their breath. "We mean you no harm," one of them said through a translator device. Its voice was soft and melodic, unlike the cold tones of the invaders. "Our leaders have made mistakes. Your actions have shown us another path, a path of understanding." Jack stepped forward, his guitar slung over his shoulder. He didn't know what to say, so he did what came naturally. He played a song. The melody flowed gently, carrying emotions words alone couldn't express. To everyone's surprise, the aliens responded by emitting soft pulses of light in rhythm with the music. Afterward, the aliens shared valuable details about the mothership's vulnerabilities, including weak points in its energy grid. Armed with this knowledge, Jack, Ryan, and Emily devised a daring plan. If the aliens returned, humanity wouldn't rely solely on music and joy. They would strike strategically, using sound waves amplified by modified equipment to disable the fleet entirely. As preparations began, Vrax watched from afar, torn between loyalty to his people and admiration for humanity. He had always believed in strength through fear, but now he questioned whether true power lay elsewhere, in courage, unity, and hope. For the first time, he wondered if conquest was worth the cost. Little did anyone know, the next chapter of this story was already unfolding. Humanity had won a battle, but the war for peace and understanding was just beginning. The plan was bold, risky, and unlike anything humanity had ever attempted. Using the information provided by the rogue aliens, Jack, Ryan, Emily, and a team of engineers worked tirelessly to modify drones equipped with powerful speakers and amplifiers. These devices would carry the amplified sound waves directly into the heart of the alien mothership, targeting its energy grid. If successful, the mission would disable the fleet's primary source of power, forcing them to retreat, or worse, rendering them powerless. Preparations moved quickly but carefully. The team tested the equipment in remote areas, ensuring it could handle the frequencies needed to disrupt the alien systems. Volunteers from around the world contributed whatever they could: supplies, technical expertise, or simply moral support. Even Lily pitched in, helping organize logistics and keeping everyone motivated. "We're doing this for all of us," she reminded the group whenever spirits flagged. As the launch date approached, tension grew palpable. No one knew what awaited them inside the alien ships. Were there defenses they hadn't accounted for? Would the rogue aliens betray them at the last moment? Despite these uncertainties, Jack remained steadfast. "If we don't try," he told the team during a late-night meeting, "we'll always wonder what might have been." And that's no way to live. On the day of the mission, the group gathered in a makeshift command center set up in an abandoned warehouse. Drones buzzed softly as technicians ran final checks, while Ryan coordinated communications between teams scattered across the globe. Emily documented every step, her camera capturing both the chaos and the quiet determination etched on everyone's faces. When the time came, Jack volunteered to lead the infiltration team. He wasn't a soldier or a scientist, but his calm demeanor and unwavering optimism made him a natural choice. Beside him stood Eric, the man who had facilitated contact with the rogue aliens, and Maria, whose resourcefulness had proven invaluable throughout the planning stages. Together, they boarded a small aircraft designed to evade alien sensors, carrying the modified drones in tow. The journey into space was surreal. As Earth faded into the distance, replaced by the vast emptiness of the cosmos, Jack felt a mix of awe and fear. They were tiny specks venturing into the unknown, armed with little more than hope and ingenuity. When the alien mothership loomed ahead, a colossal structure bristling with lights and machinery, the reality of their task hit hard. Inside the ship, silence reigned. The corridors were eerily empty, lit only by faint blue glows emanating from the walls. The air hummed with an unsettling energy, making everyone's skin prickle. Jack clutched his guitar tightly, finding comfort in its familiar weight. "Stay close," he whispered to the others, his voice barely audible over the hum. They reached the core chamber without incident, thanks to the detailed maps provided by the rogue aliens. The room was massive, filled with glowing conduits and pulsating orbs that seemed alive. This was it, the heart of the ship. Without hesitation, Ryan activated the drones, sending them buzzing toward the energy grid. Their speakers erupted with a cacophony of sound, vibrations rippling outward like shockwaves. Alarms blared instantly, red lights flashing as the ship shuddered violently. Vrax appeared moments later, his expression unreadable. For a tense heartbeat, no one moved. Then Jack stepped forward, holding out a hand, not in aggression, but in invitation. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "There's another way." Vrax hesitated, torn between duty and curiosity. His species thrived on control, yet here were humans offering something entirely different: connection. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he lowered his weapon. In that moment, everything changed, not just for humanity, but for the aliens too.